The regional manager discovered the quiet night janitor standing between an angry executive and a young cafeteria worker who had secretly fed him every night for months. What happened next was unbelievable. No one in the building understood why 72-year-old Arthur never missed a single night. Every evening at exactly 8:45, after the last employees rushed home, he would quietly begin pushing his worn-out cleaning cart through the polished hallways of the towering glass-bridge financial headquarters. His gray uniform was always neatly pressed, though the cuffs had been stitched together so many times that the original fabric had almost disappeared. Most people barely noticed him. Some walked around him as if he were invisible. Others complained if a trash bin wasn't emptied quickly enough. Arthur never argued. He simply smiled, nodded, and continued working. What nobody knew was that Arthur had once spent 38 years serving as a police officer before retiring. His pension had disappeared after paying for his late wife's cancer treatments, forcing him back into work long after most people his age were enjoying peaceful retirement. His knees hurt every morning. His hands shook slightly from arthritis. But his eyes never stopped watching. Old habits refused to die. He noticed every unlocked office. Every unfamiliar face. Every suspicious sound. Even while pushing a mop across marble floors, Arthur instinctively observed exits, cameras, security weaknesses, and the people who worked late into the evening. The security guards often joked that Arthur probably knew more about the building than they did. They weren't wrong. 3 floors below the executive offices worked 26-year-old Maya Brooks. She wasn't a banker. She wasn't an executive assistant. She worked in the employee cafeteria. Every morning before sunrise, Maya prepared breakfast for nearly 800 employees. Every afternoon she cleaned tables, restocked supplies, and smiled through aching feet as hundreds of workers barely looked up from their phones while collecting their meals. Her paycheck barely covered rent for the tiny apartment she shared with her younger brother, Liam. After their parents died in a car accident 6 years earlier, Maya became everything. Sister. Guardian. Provider. Dream protector. She quietly gave up college so Liam could stay in school. She worked double shifts whenever overtime became available. She skipped buying new clothes for herself so Liam could have textbooks. She never complained. Not once. Every evening, just before closing the cafeteria, dozens of perfectly good meals were thrown away. Company policy. Fresh food couldn't be served the next day. Watching trays filled with untouched chicken, vegetables, soup, and fresh bread disappear into garbage bags broke Maya's heart. Especially after she noticed Arthur. He never asked for food. Never hinted. Never lingered. He simply drank water from the employee fountain during his short break before returning to work. One rainy Thursday, Maya made a decision. "Mr. Arthur," she called softly as he passed the kitchen. The elderly janitor turned immediately. "Yes, Miss Maya. I accidentally prepared one extra dinner." Arthur looked at the neatly packed container on the counter. He smiled gently. "Accidents happen. I'd hate for it to go to waste." For several seconds neither of them moved. Finally Arthur accepted the container with both hands. "Thank you." There was no embarrassment. No pity. Only quiet dignity. The next evening another extra meal appeared. Then another. Soon it became their unspoken tradition. Every night Maya would leave one carefully packed dinner near the back entrance. Every night Arthur would quietly collect it after thanking her with the same warm smile. Neither of them discussed it. Neither pretended charity was involved. It was simply one human being refusing to let another go hungry. Weeks turned into months. Something else began happening. Arthur started lingering near the cafeteria after Maya finished closing. Not enough to seem suspicious. Just enough to make sure she reached the employee parking lot safely. He never announced it. Never expected thanks. He simply watched from a distance until her old blue sedan disappeared through the gate. One evening Maya noticed him. "You don't have to wait for me," she said kindly. Arthur chuckled. "Old habits." "What habits?" "The kind that make an old man sleep better knowing everyone got home safely." She laughed. "I think you're worrying too much." "Maybe." But he still watched. Every single night. One Tuesday, nearly 6 months after their first shared meal, Glassbridge Financial announced sweeping budget cuts. Rumors spread through every floor. Departments would shrink. Contract workers would be dismissed. Support staff would be reduced first. The cafeteria employees whispered nervously. Janitors avoided eye contact. Security guards spoke in hushed voices. Then Maya overheard something that made her heart stop. "The first person they're letting go is the cafeteria worker on the night shift. Her." Without warning. Without another source of income. Without knowing how she'd pay Liam's tuition. Without knowing how she'd make rent next month. She stared silently at the dinner container she had just packed for Arthur. Even facing her own uncertainty. She picked it up. Walked to the usual counter. And smiled when Arthur arrived. "Looks like I made one extra meal again." Arthur accepted it with grateful eyes. But for the first time, he noticed something was terribly wrong. Little did Maya know. The quiet old janitor she had been feeding every night had already seen something in the building that no one else had noticed. And before the week was over, he would risk everything to protect the very job she believed she had already lost. Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart and you want to see more acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It means the world to me and helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that completely changed your perspective? Share your story in the comments below. The following evening, Maya arrived at work carrying the same quiet smile she always wore. But it wasn't real. No one in the cafeteria noticed the difference. The breakfast rush still came in waves. Executives ordered expensive coffees without making eye contact. Interns hurried through the line balancing trays and laptops. Managers complained about meetings before the day had even begun. Maya smiled at every customer. "Good morning. Enjoy your meal. Have a wonderful day." The words came automatically. Inside, she was counting. 9 days until rent. 3 weeks until Liam's college tuition payment. 2 months before the landlord could legally begin eviction proceedings if she fell behind. She had spent the previous night updating her resume after Liam had gone to bed. There weren't many qualifications to list. Food service. Inventory management. Customer service. 10 years of responsibility that didn't fit neatly into a few bullet points. She folded the resume carefully and slipped it into her bag before beginning another shift. That evening, Arthur noticed immediately. "You've been carrying the whole world on your shoulders today," he said softly as he stopped by the kitchen entrance. Maya forced a laugh. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's spent a lifetime reading faces." She handed him the familiar food container. "This one has beef stew tonight." Arthur accepted it but didn't leave. Instead, he leaned gently against the doorway. "Would you like to tell me what's weighing on your mind?" For a moment, Maya considered saying everything was fine. It would have been easier. But something about Arthur's calm presence made pretending impossible. "They're cutting staff." Arthur nodded slowly. "I heard. I think I'm first." Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable silence. The kind shared between two people who understood that some pain couldn't be fixed with quick advice. Finally Arthur spoke. When I was a young officer, my captain used to tell us something. What was that? Never confuse today's storm with tomorrow's forecast. Maya smiled faintly. That's a nice saying. He was rarely wrong. I hope he's right this time. Arthur looked directly into her eyes. So do I. As Maya locked the cafeteria doors that night, Arthur quietly followed several steps behind as usual. The parking garage was unusually empty. Most employees had already gone home. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Halfway to her car, Maya heard raised voices. Near the executive parking area, two maintenance contractors were arguing with a middle-aged man in an expensive suit. I said move those boxes tonight, the executive barked. We're already behind schedule, one contractor replied. You'll work until it's finished. Arthur slowed his pace. His eyes narrowed. The executive stormed away toward the elevators, muttering angrily into his phone. The contractors exchanged uneasy glances before returning to work. Maya sighed. Everyone seems stressed lately. Arthur didn't answer immediately. Instead, he quietly watched one of the contractors swipe an access card that wasn't assigned to his department. Most people would never have noticed. Arthur did. His years as a police officer had taught him that tiny details often revealed much bigger problems. The contractor disappeared into a restricted records corridor. Arthur memorized the badge number without saying a word. Everything all right? Maya asked. Probably. You don't sound convinced. I'm just an old man who notices things. She smiled. And worries too much? He smiled back. That too. The next evening, Maya found something waiting on the cafeteria counter before her shift ended. A small paper bag. Inside was a loaf of fresh homemade bread wrapped in a clean kitchen towel. A handwritten note rested on top. Thank you for every meal. I thought perhaps your family might enjoy this. My late wife taught me to bake. She always believed gratitude should be shared, not spoken. Arthur. Maya couldn't help laughing through tears. The bread was still warm. She carried it home that night. Liam's eyes widened as she opened the towel. Where did this come from? From a friend. He tore off a small piece and smiled. This is incredible. He made it himself. The janitor? He used to bake with his wife. Liam became quiet. Sounds like a good man. He really is. The next night, Maya returned the towel neatly folded. You didn't have to do that, she told Arthur. I know. My brother loved the bread. Arthur's face brightened. Good. He asked if you have any secret recipes. Arthur chuckled. Oh, dozens. Maybe one day you could teach him. I'd like that. It was the first time Maya had seen genuine excitement in Arthur's eyes. Not because someone praised his bread. Because someone had invited him back into a family conversation. A place he hadn't belonged since losing his wife years ago. Their conversations became slightly longer after that. Arthur learned Liam dreamed of becoming an engineer. Maya learned Arthur had never had children of his own. I always imagined teaching my son how to ride a bicycle, Arthur admitted one evening. What happened? He smiled sadly. Life had different plans. I'm sorry. So was I, for a long time. He looked toward the city lights beyond the cafeteria windows. But eventually I realized something. What? You can still leave a legacy through people who aren't your family. Maya thought about those words long after he walked away. The following Friday, the Human Resources Department summoned every cafeteria employee to a mandatory meeting. The room felt unusually tense. No one spoke. The HR manager shuffled several folders before clearing her throat. As many of you know, the company is restructuring support services. Several employees lowered their heads. We'll begin notifying affected staff individually next week. Maya's stomach tightened. She already knew. She could almost hear her name before it was spoken. When the meeting ended, co-workers gathered in worried clusters. I heard they're eliminating 5 positions. My cousin works upstairs. He said the executives already signed everything. I can't afford to lose this job. Neither could Maya. That evening she prepared Arthur's meal more carefully than ever. Roasted chicken. Rice. Fresh vegetables. A slice of pie she had secretly purchased with her own money. When Arthur arrived, he immediately noticed. This is too much. She smiled gently. I wanted to say thank you. For what? For reminding me that kindness still exists. Arthur looked at the container without opening it. Then he quietly asked the question that caught her off guard. If tomorrow were your last day here, what would you regret most? Maya didn't answer immediately. Finally she whispered. I wouldn't regret working hard. She paused. I'd regret not being able to keep my promise to my parents. Arthur frowned gently. What promise? That Liam would finish school, no matter what happened to me. Arthur's heart tightened. He understood that kind of promise. Because decades earlier, he had made one almost identical to his own wife. At that very moment, down the hallway, the same executive Arthur had watched days earlier slipped into a restricted financial records office after hours. Once again. Using an access card that didn't belong to him. Arthur watched quietly from the shadows. This time. He knew it wasn't a coincidence. And he had a feeling that whatever was happening behind those locked doors was somehow connected to the budget cuts that threatened to destroy Maya's future. Without telling anyone, the quiet old janitor decided to start paying much closer attention. The following Monday, Arthur began arriving 30 minutes earlier than usual. To everyone else, it looked like an old janitor trying to get ahead of his work. In reality, he was watching. Not spying. Watching. There was a difference. During his 38 years as a police officer, Arthur had learned that people often revealed the truth when they believed no one important was paying attention. And in a corporate office, few people noticed the janitor. Executives discussed confidential matters while walking past him. Managers argued over budgets while he emptied trash cans. Employees left sensitive papers on their desks, assuming the quiet man pushing a mop wasn't listening. Arthur never violated anyone's privacy. But he noticed patterns. The same senior executive, Victor Langford, kept entering the restricted financial records office long after everyone else had gone home. He was never alone. The same contractor accompanied him every time. Neither man signed the after-hours logbook. Neither reported their visits to building security. Arthur said nothing. Not yet. Meanwhile, Maya tried her best to pretend everything was normal. She laughed with coworkers. She greeted customers warmly. She even stayed late to help train a new employee, despite knowing that person might eventually replace her. One afternoon, her coworker Denise pulled her aside. I have to ask you something. What is it? Why are you helping everyone when you're the one who might lose your job? Maya shrugged. Because someone still needs help. Denise stared at her. If I were in your shoes, I'd be angry. I am. You don't look angry. Maya smiled sadly. My parents taught me something I'll never forget. What? They said difficult times don't create your character. They reveal it. Denise didn't know what to say. By the end of the week, that conversation had quietly spread through the cafeteria. Employees who barely spoke to Maya before now started helping her without being asked. Someone refilled supplies before she noticed they were low. Another worker covered her break. A dishwasher secretly packed leftovers so she wouldn't have to buy dinner on the way home. Kindness, it seemed, had begun multiplying. Arthur noticed. His wife used to call it the echo effect. One good deed creating another. And another. And another. Late Thursday evening, Arthur found Maya sitting alone outside the employee entrance. She wasn't crying. She was simply staring at the city skyline. He sat beside her without saying a word. After several minutes, she finally spoke. Liam got accepted into the engineering honors program. Arthur smiled. That's wonderful. It is. She looked down at her hands. But there's an additional tuition fee. Silence. I haven't told him. He'll figure it out eventually. I know. She laughed weakly. I've spent 6 years protecting him from adult problems. You've done a remarkable job. I don't feel remarkable. Arthur turned toward her. May I tell you something my wife used to say? She nodded. Strength doesn't always feel strong while you're carrying it. Maya closed her eyes. I wish I could have met her. Arthur smiled softly. I think she would have liked you. Just then, Arthur's phone vibrated. It was an old flip phone with a cracked screen. A message from one of the night security guards. Need your opinion. Something doesn't seem right upstairs. Arthur excused himself. I need to check on something. Everything okay? I hope so. He walked calmly toward the elevators. Inside, however, every instinct he had developed over decades was sounding an alarm. On the 23rd floor, he found security guard Carlos standing near the finance department. Carlos lowered his voice immediately. You were right. About what? The same executive. Victor Langford. He's been coming here nearly every night. Carlos handed Arthur a maintenance request clipboard. I couldn't officially show you this. Arthur looked at the after-hours access report. Several entries had been deleted. Not missing. Deleted. Someone with administrator privileges had erased electronic records. Arthur frowned. Has anyone reported this? Carlos shook his head. Victor signs my performance reviews. Arthur understood immediately. Fear. Fear kept good people silent. Arthur handed the clipboard back. You did the right thing. What are you going to do? Arthur looked through the glass wall toward the executive offices. The truth has a way of introducing itself. The next morning, Maya received an email from Human Resources. Her hands trembled before she even opened it. Mandatory meeting, Monday, 9 a.m. No explanation. No subject beyond those 2 words. She already knew what it meant. That weekend, she searched online for second jobs. Night cleaning. Retail. Warehouse work. Anything. Liam noticed. You've been quiet lately. I'm just tired. You've worked too hard for too long. She smiled. It'll get better. He studied her face. You always say that. Because it's true. Is it? Maya hesitated. Then forced another smile. It has to be. After Liam went to bed, Maya sat alone in the kitchen. She looked at the family photograph hanging on the wall. Her parents smiled back from another lifetime. I tried, she whispered. I really tried. A tear finally escaped. The first one in weeks. The following Monday arrived. Arthur saw Maya walking into the building. She looked calm. Too calm. People often became strangely peaceful just before receiving devastating news. He wanted to tell her everything would be all right. But he couldn't make promises he wasn't certain he could keep. At 8:55 a.m., Maya entered the Human Resources office. At exactly the same moment, Arthur walked into the office of Margaret Ellis, the company's regional operations director. Unlike most executives, Margaret had always greeted every employee by name. Including janitors. She looked surprised. Arthur. I apologize for interrupting. You never interrupt. He closed the door gently. I believe something is happening inside this building that you need to know. Margaret immediately noticed the seriousness in his voice. What kind of something? Arthur carefully placed a handwritten notebook on her desk. Inside were 6 months of observations. Dates. Times. Badge numbers. Deleted access records. Names. Nothing exaggerated. Nothing assumed. Only facts. Margaret slowly turned each page. Her expression changed. This is extensive. Arthur nodded. I spent most of my life investigating crimes. You were a police officer. More than 800 employees gathered before work. Maya stood near the back, still trying to process everything that had happened. Margaret stepped to the microphone. Yesterday, Glassbridge Financial came dangerously close to making a terrible mistake. The room became silent. We nearly lost dedicated employees because we failed to notice the people who notice everything. She turned toward Arthur. Mr. Arthur Collins. The crowd erupted into applause. Arthur slowly walked forward, clearly wishing he could disappear. Margaret smiled. Arthur served this country as a police officer for 38 years. Gasps echoed through the room. He brought that same integrity into this building every single night. She paused. But there's another person whose kindness made this moment possible. Margaret looked toward Maya. Miss Maya Brooks. Maya froze. Co-workers gently encouraged her forward. She walked to the stage with trembling hands. Margaret continued. For 6 months, Maya quietly made sure Arthur never went home hungry. Murmurs spread through the audience. She expected nothing in return. Arthur smiled warmly at Maya. I've accepted many awards in my life, he said into the microphone. But none of them meant as much as that first warm meal she handed me. The room fell completely silent. I wasn't hungry because I was careless. He looked toward the employees. I was hungry because life sometimes humbles even the strongest people. He turned back toward Maya. She never asked questions that would embarrass me. She never made me feel small. She simply chose kindness. Many employees wiped away tears. Margaret waited a moment before making one final announcement. Effective immediately, all planned layoffs are cancelled. Thunderous applause filled the atrium. And after reviewing Miss Brooks' extraordinary work ethic and leadership, she smiled. I'm pleased to announce that Maya Brooks has accepted the newly created position of Employee Wellness and Community Programs Coordinator. Maya's eyes widened. What? You've spent years taking care of everyone else. Margaret laughed. It's time the company trusted you to lead initiatives that care for our people. The promotion came with a substantial salary increase, full benefits, tuition assistance for immediate family members, and a leadership development scholarship that would allow Maya to finish the college degree she had sacrificed years earlier. Maya couldn't speak. She simply hugged Arthur. The applause grew even louder. 3 months later, the cafeteria looked different. At Maya's recommendation, Glassbridge launched a new community partnership. Instead of throwing away untouched meals every evening, surplus food was carefully packaged and delivered to local shelters and community kitchens. Waste dropped dramatically. Thousands of meals reached families who needed them. Arthur volunteered every Friday evening to help with deliveries. Liam often joined him. The old policeman and the young engineering student became unlikely friends. Arthur taught Liam practical skills his father had never had the chance to teach him. How to stay calm during emergencies. How to judge character. How to repair things instead of throwing them away. In return, Liam patiently showed Arthur how to use smartphones, video calls, and modern technology. You know, Arthur laughed one afternoon, I spent decades chasing criminals. And now? Now I'm trying to remember my email password. Liam laughed so hard he nearly dropped the phone. A year later, Maya stood on a small stage wearing a graduation gown. She had finally completed the business degree she'd once believed was impossible. In the front row sat Liam, Margaret, dozens of co-workers, and Arthur. His eyes filled with tears as Maya accepted her diploma. After the ceremony, she walked straight to him. "You kept your promise," Arthur said quietly. She smiled. "No." She gently took his hand. "We kept it." Months later, Glassbridge introduced a mentorship program pairing senior employees with new staff members. Arthur officially retired. But every Tuesday morning, he returned to the building as a volunteer mentor. Young employees gathered around him, eager to hear stories about integrity, courage, and paying attention to the people everyone else overlooked. Near the cafeteria entrance, a small bronze plaque was installed. It read, "Kindness often begins with the people the world forgets to notice. See one another. Care for one another. Protect one another." Every new employee stopped to read it. And every evening, before leaving work, Maya quietly prepared one extra meal. Not because Arthur still needed it. He didn't. But because someone else always did. Sometimes it was a delivery driver working late. Sometimes a cleaner. Sometimes a security guard. She never asked who deserved it. She simply remembered that one small act of kindness had changed not only her life, but the lives of countless others. This story shows how one act of kindness can change everything. What's one way you could make a difference in someone's life today? Challenge yourself and share your commitment in the comments. 2 years passed. Glassbridge Financial no longer looked like the company it had once been. The changes weren't just found in policy manuals or financial reports. They were visible in the smiles exchanged between employees. In the way executives now greeted janitors by name. In the way security guards were invited to company celebrations. In the simple understanding that every person inside the building mattered. Margaret Ellis had kept her promise. After the investigation, the company created an ethics committee that included representatives from every department, not just executives. Cafeteria workers, maintenance staff, receptionists, cleaners, and security officers all had a voice in decisions that affected the workplace. No one should ever feel invisible again, Margaret often reminded the leadership team. The phrase became part of the company's culture. Meanwhile, Maya flourished in her new role. As Employee Wellness and Community Programs Coordinator, she introduced ideas that transformed the workplace. She organized monthly food drives. She created an emergency assistance fund for employees facing unexpected hardships. She launched scholarship programs for workers' children. She even introduced a kindness wall, where employees could anonymously recognize coworkers who had quietly helped someone else. Within months, the wall overflowed with handwritten notes. "Thank you to the maintenance team for fixing my car after work. To the receptionist who stayed late so I wouldn't be alone waiting for a ride, you'll never know how much that meant. To whoever paid for my lunch when I forgot my wallet, thank you." Maya smiled every time she walked past it. Because she knew kindness was contagious. Liam also achieved the dream his sister had sacrificed so much to protect. He graduated at the top of his engineering class. On graduation day, he searched through the cheering crowd until he found Maya and Arthur sitting side by side. He walked directly toward them before anyone else. "This diploma belongs to both of you," he said. Maya shook her head. "You earned it. I couldn't have earned anything without you." Then he turned toward Arthur. "And I never got the chance to thank you." Arthur smiled. "For what?" "For teaching me what being a good man actually looks like." Arthur's eyes glistened. "I only showed you what others once showed me." Liam embraced him tightly. There wasn't a dry eye among the guests nearby. Arthur's own life had changed in ways he never expected. Although he officially retired from Glassbridge, he quickly discovered retirement didn't suit him. People kept asking for his advice. Young professionals sought his mentorship. Local schools invited him to speak about integrity. Police academies welcomed him back to share lessons from nearly 4 decades of service. But his favorite place remained the company cafeteria every Friday afternoon. Not as an employee. As a friend. Every Friday, Maya insisted they share lunch together. It became a tradition. Sometimes they laughed over Arthur's failed attempts to understand the latest technology. Sometimes they remembered his beloved wife, Eleanor. Sometimes they simply sat in comfortable silence. One Friday, Maya asked him a question that had been on her heart for a long time. "Can I ask you something honestly?" Arthur nodded. "Of course. Why did you risk everything for me?" Arthur looked out the cafeteria window for a long moment before answering. "When my wife was sick, there were strangers who helped us." He smiled softly. "One neighbor left groceries at our door every Wednesday. A pharmacist quietly paid for medicine when we couldn't. A nurse stayed after her shift just to hold Eleanor's hand because she didn't want her to feel alone." He looked back at Maya. "They never asked for recognition. They simply chose compassion." He gently folded his hands. "I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I would become for someone else what they had been for us." Maya reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You kept that promise." Arthur smiled. "So did you." Several years later, another young cafeteria employee noticed something unusual. Every evening, just before closing, Maya carefully packed one extra meal. The employee finally asked, "Who is that for?" Maya smiled. "I don't always know. But someone will need it." That night, the meal went to a young delivery driver whose wallet had been stolen. The following week, it went to a cleaning contractor working double shifts to support his newborn daughter. Another evening, it went to a woman waiting in the hospital across the street while her husband underwent emergency surgery. The tradition never ended. No announcements. No photographs. No social media posts. Just quiet kindness. One ordinary evening, Maya paused beside the bronze plaque near the cafeteria entrance. She gently traced the engraved words with her fingertips. "Kindness often begins with the people the world forgets to notice. See one another. Care for one another. Protect one another." A newly hired intern stopped beside her. "I've always wondered," the young woman said, "who inspired that plaque." Maya smiled toward the entrance, where Arthur was helping an elderly visitor find the reception desk. "Someone who taught me that heroes don't always wear expensive suits. They sometimes wear janitor uniforms." The intern looked at Arthur with new respect. Without realizing it, another ripple had begun. One more life changed simply because someone chose to notice another person. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. Most of us will never lead giant corporations. Most of us will never become famous. Most of us will never make headlines. But every single one of us will meet people who are carrying burdens we cannot see. The cashier forcing a smile after losing a loved one. The bus driver working overtime to pay medical bills. The cleaner everyone walks past without a greeting. The elderly neighbor eating dinner alone. The young parent wondering how they'll afford tomorrow. Kindness doesn't require wealth. It doesn't require influence. It doesn't require perfect timing. Sometimes, it looks like a warm meal. Sometimes, it's listening without judgment. Sometimes, it's standing up for someone when no one else will. And sometimes, the smallest act you barely remember becomes the moment someone else never forgets. Because the truth is this. You rarely know whose life you're changing. You may never discover the impact your compassion has created. But that doesn't make it any less real. Just as Maya never imagined one simple meal would protect her future. And Arthur never imagined accepting that meal would lead him to save an entire workplace. Your kindness may already be writing a story you'll never get to read. So the next time you have the opportunity to help someone, take it. Offer encouragement. Share what you have. Protect those who can't protect themselves. Notice the people everyone else overlooks. You never know where one act of compassion will lead. It might rescue a stranger. It might restore someone's hope. Or it might begin a chain of kindness that continues long after you're gone. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary kindness exists all around us. If this touched your heart, please like this video, it helps more people discover these inspiring stories. Subscribe for more tales of human kindness that will restore your faith in humanity. And most importantly, look for opportunities in your own life to be someone's unexpected blessing. What act of kindness will you perform this week? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and remember, you have the power to change someone's entire world.